Welcome to Deeply Disturbing Things.
The podcast.
I'm Macy,
And I'm Naomi.
and we've got stuff for you today.
Yes, we are doing a deeply disturbing outing in the Hillyard neighborhood of Spokane, Washington. Behind us here is a building that used to be a boarding house. It's called Kate's Boarding House. And I read that it's the oldest house in this neighborhood. And the owner likes to collect old carnival rides, so they're in the yard. And we've been up here before. We just can't stay away. It's endlessly it's so fascinating.
Yes.
So just a brief history of this area, Hillyard. Just to the east of us is a big plain that was called Wild Horse Plain because when the white trappers first came here, there was wild horses running around, but they were actually the natives' horses. They just didn't pen them like the white settler tradition. So they were wild. And now going across this plain is being built our north-south freeway that's been being built for like
30 years.
30 years.
Forever.
We used to actually practice roller derby just up here in a warehouse, but we got kicked out by then Mayor Mary Verner because of the north-south freeway. But that land didn't get touched for probably another decade after that, so we could have kept our warehouse and kept practicing there. It was a super dope,
Super rude
practice place. Yeah. So there's lots of history here in this neighborhood. It's named after, I think it was James J. Hill, as Hill's Yard, and he was a train tycoon.
Oh, is that why there's all the trains?
Yeah,
over there?
you can't see, but there's like
there's a
train
bunch.
artwork on all the buildings, and it's like a train track like right next to us. And this train area was challenging because it's actually a 5% grade. You can't really tell.
If we skated it, we could eventually.
Yes.
Feel it.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. So we've skated on this
Yeah.
trail that goes all the way from the Spokane River up north towards Colbert, and it's called the Children of the Sun Trail, and that's
Yes.
named after the old traditional trail that the Spokane tribes used to take. And so there's a story of the ghost coal train.
What? Are you gonna tell ghost stories? I'm so excited. I've been brought along this trip, and I don't know any of the things.
I know, this is just a treat for me.
This is fun for me.
Okay, disclaimer, last night was my birthday, Friday the 13th. I may have had one too many Manhattans.
How many? You had like 3 or 4.
I had like 3. And that would be all well and good, but Stella is right now getting up before 6 o'clock, so I'm a little tired, so we got some Starbucks on board, but I'm in a rally. But I got to spend my many hours this morning that I was awake doing research. So I went to the bookstore yesterday and got Chet Kaski's other book. This is just about Haunted Hillyard. I would say it's a pretty cool book, but do fact check on your own. So he tells the story of the ghost coal train accident, but I had to do a lot of research. At first I thought it wasn't true because I couldn't find anything on it anywhere. But then I found this article from the Racing Journal, Racing, Wisconsin, from June 23rd, 1903. So in the book he says it's in June of 1902, but it's actually in 1903.
Fact check. Don't trust anybody.
Fact check,
Don't
yes.
trust us either.
This is a good place to start to be like, oh, these are some points that I can branch off and research, but do your own research. So, I did that clipping. I had to sign up for the free trial to access the news articles, and then I immediately canceled it. So there was about 70 cars were set up here, up in Hillyard, and most of them were full of coal, and they set all the handbrakes, and it was waiting to get a caboose and engine. Down at an old abandoned train station down like that way on Division, so I think it's about 4 miles away or so, were abandoned boxcars that people would sleep in. Back then they used to call them like tramps or hobos. we don't really use those terms today, but it was very popular back then. And so, for some reason, nobody knows why, the train started rolling on its own, even though it had all the handbrakes set, and it started picking up speed and picking up speed and picking up speed. And by the time it got to that abandoned train yard where those boxcars were sitting and this big mountain of dirt, it was said to be going 90 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh.
So it exploded into this mountain of dirt, into these 4 boxcars, derailed, coal was flying through the air, and then it smashed through businesses and houses. It knocked, the force of this thing knocked buildings off of their foundations, like 4 feet to the side. And then there were 4 tragedies. Do you want to read those right there?
So, killing at least 4 persons, injuring 8 others. The dead, what's WM? Is that woman?
I think William.
William Thomas, a working man.
A working man, that's how you got categorized in the old days.
Elmer Slee, aged 9. So 9-year-old.
Yeah.
And then 2 unidentified men that they
I think those were the hobos.
Probably. The train began to slip and soon had a terrible headway. So this is, okay, so it hit head on with the boxcars, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. 4 boxcars sitting there. See how they say a tramp?
Yeah.
A boxcar in which Thomas and a tramp were sleeping.
When you said that, I was like, I don't know where you've heard that reference before, so it makes sense that you brought it up.
No,
now.
that was really a word. And back even in the 80s when I was in high school,
like, Naomi, that's
people used the word hobo. It was lingo. It's fallen out of favor now, but that was a term. So something interesting about this book is they all come with this envelope taped in the back with something inside it. I haven't opened it yet. So I thought at our very last stop we could open it together and see what it is.
Secrets.
I don't know what it is. So what else about this area? So obviously all of this traditional native lands. So out here to the east, Spokane Chief Gary lived. He was forced off his land. And in a future outing episode on a different day, I want to take you to the place he lived at the end of his life. It's a really fascinating, incredible spot, secret waterfall place.
I love secret waterfalls.
So we have a consultant now.
We do.
Who I was sure to check in with before we spoke of anything having to do with the tribe, because we're trying to do the nothing about us without us approach to things. And so he said pretty much most of what's in the book about the story, the history of this area is true, but the battles are glossed over and they're presented more on the side of the white people, as far as not highlighting the victories and the accomplishments that the natives have, which were a lot. They did win that battle step to a boot, which is the reason that Colonel George Wright came up here plowing his path of destruction, and ended up killing the 900 horses out of the horse slaughter camp, which we were at a couple weeks ago out there.
Yeah.
So one of the stories in here that I do want to learn more about, so I'm not going to say a lot about it. Our consultant, Danny, said he wasn't really too familiar with that story either, but there was a chief peon who was half native, half French. And so when George, I keep calling him Fort George, right? It's because we have a fort that's named after him. When Colonel George Wright was coming up here and killing everybody, and he is said to have put a white flag up at the top of this ponderosa pine on his property, which was supposed to signal anti-resistance. But I really do feel there's probably a lot more to that story.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not exactly what was happening. But supposedly this peace tree, as it's called,
Peace
a picture
tree.
of it,
Okay.
is around here. But it's supposed to be on private property, so I don't know if we'll go there. Maybe we'll drive by and see if we can
Find it.
at least see it in the distance.
Yeah.
I'm not getting arrested today.
We're already filming people's backyards. Why not?
No, what's
If
not
you
fair?
have this in your backyard, it's kind of fair game.
I know.
It
Has to
way.
attract attention. Yeah, so I do want to say that the treaty that was formed between the military, the U.S. military, and the local tribes was not followed through on. Mm-mm. They were supposed to get a lot more land that extended all the way down to the river, and that's not the case. And so I really wanted to point that out. So look into it, look into the history. It's deeply disturbing, and we're continuing to
learn more about it.
Different aspects of the story and tell it. So we're gonna go to another spot, and
see you
there.
there
Back in a second. Hey, so we're here on our next stop on our disturbing Hillyard tour,
which we actually had to do some sleuthing to find.
We had to do some sleuthing. So this house that's behind us used to be the Hillyard tuberculosis sanitarium. So in the book, there's just a photo. There was no address. Mm-hmm. And I researched this morning and couldn't find the address. So we went to a couple antique shops in the little downtown Hillyard area, and they pointed us in the right vicinity. Nobody knew exactly where it was. So we just zigged and zagged up some streets, and we found it. So this is it behind us. So back when tuberculosis was really a big problem, you had to go to these sanitariums so that people would observe you taking your medicine and everything you owned that you came in with had to be burned. I mean, it was a whole public safety thing.
Sanitation was...
Yeah. So it's said that this place is haunted. I mean, understandable. A lot of people, I think I read 25% would be expected to die that would go into a tuberculosis sanitarium like this. Mm-hmm. And so I looked at our WACs, our Washington Administrative Code today, and there's still a WAC for tuberculosis on the books. So you can be still involuntarily placed and treated if you are not following the public health guidelines. So this is a gift to you.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
You can have the WAC on it. It's the procedures for involuntary testing, treatment,
which feels so relevant in our times for all the things that have come up recently.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff at the pandemic where they would say, well, it's a public health emergency. That's why the governor can tell us whatever he wants to tell us.
Can apparently put you in a sanitarium.
I think it's an apartment now. The sanitarium's closed in the late 70s. Mm-hmm. But very interesting. All right, we're off to our next stop. Hey, we're here at the next stop on our tour. This is known as the Evergreen Cemetery, but it's been known by lots of names throughout its history, depending on who was maintaining it. Macy and I had no idea the cemetery was even here.
I've driven past it a lot. Yeah, there's a big freeway over there.
There's a freeway. You have to park your car on the road and walk in. So this is, you can see behind us, it's just a very small cemetery up on the top of the hill under power lines. And so there's different sections. Just down the hill from us is the Masonic area. This is dedicated to people that fought in all the wars from the whole history of the United States, not Revolutionary War, but like Civil War and beyond. Mm-hmm. And what the cemetery is known for is having a lot of unmarked graves. Yeah. So the last association to take it over has been trying to research and try to find where these unmarked graves are and then making markers for them. But there are a lot of unmarked graves here, and there are an inordinate amount of babies and old people that are buried here in the cemetery.
Yeah, there's a lot of markers that are outside. So like this one is specifically fenced in, but there's a lot of markers that are outside, just kind of scattered along the hillside.
Mm-hmm. So There's supposedly a big monolith.
Yeah,
up
we're
here.
gonna go explore some more because there's a couple
try to
different
find it.
paths, and we gotta do some walking to get there.
Bye. The graves are sort of haphazard all around.
Yeah,
Like these are just
there's some
in the tall grass all over the hillside. Let's go
then,
look at some of those.
Yeah, let's look at some of them.
Yeah, there are a lot of infant ones, which are sad.
I was about to say, yeah, we saw a 10-year-old, but that whole row over there is all babies.
Yeah, let's go look at that.
Which is just interesting that they're all in one section. I've never seen that in a cemetery before.
Yeah, so here's all the baby ones. So all these newer ones are ones the association made fairly recently to mark the graves that were either marked with just a brick, I heard, or were unmarked altogether.
Yeah, there's some where they're just like even too close. Like there's 3 right there that I doubt were normally together. So they're oddly placed.
Yeah. I heard this cemetery was really in disrepair for a long time and it's kind of vandalized. So they've been trying to fix it up.
It is kind of remote out here. Like
It's
you have to
remote, yeah.
come out.
Well, we're still trying to find that big peacemaker monolith.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So we think we found the monolith. We've had to trek around in the woods.
This is legit in the middle of the woods with no...
It's a little sketchy, but we were prepared to kick someone in the teeth.
There was
if
a
they
really
bothered
sketchy
us.
spot.
Yeah. So,
Look, and then there's just like a
Wow.
random.
yeah. So we found the other part. So this part is totally disconnected from the part that we were just at.
Markers coming up here or like anything.
Yeah.
Huh.
So we found our monolith that we were looking for.
It's actually quite big.
Yeah. Rest Haven, a tribute to the Old Age Pension League. So I read that a lot of the graves around here are from something called poor farms.
Oh.
That they used to have. It was publicly funded places where socially, economically disadvantaged, back in the old days called poor, people could live and work. And so when they died, they kind of had like paupers' graves.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what the Old Age Pension League means, if it has anything to do with that or not. But yeah, this thing's big.
And we did spot some of those brick markers on the way up here for what they had been using to mark spots that didn't have headstones.
Wow. It's kind of creepy around here.
It is.
We're probably gonna
We've been to a few
leave soon.
graveyards now, a number of them, and this
yeah,
has
there's
a different,
nobody around. Like if we screamed, nobody would hear us.
Yeah, this is a different vibe in general. Where the other ones definitely have like a it's about family members being there and it's well taken care of, and this honestly feels pretty forgotten. I'm glad that I'm glad that they've replaced some of the headstones and stuff, but just how scattered they are and no real rhyme or reason to placements of things feels very odd. It feels like a giant mass burial more than it does a graveyard.
Yeah, and I'm just curious about all the unmarked graves.
Yeah. We're gonna go walk around a bit and see.
Yeah, if we see something else, we'll
let you
pop
know.
back on. Otherwise, we'll check in at our next stop.
Bye.
So we read that the current association that's running this cemetery is trying to identify the unmarked graves and label them. And so this is an example of what we think is an unmarked grave that they identified. So there's a little flag, there's just a small stone and some flowers. So I believe they're trying to research the names and things and then get these graves marked. So I believe this is an example of one of the infant graves that were just marked with what they called a brick. And so they'll be going through and putting more detailed markers on these sites.
So one thing that I'm curious about is when, and you might know this, when are they coming in and doing this? Because like this spot here, the flag already torn off of the post that it's there. So this rock here, there is a metal flag post sticking out of it here.
Right here. Yeah,
but the top is worn down, so it's obviously been here a while and not been addressed. When that's going to be done, or
I don't know, and I'm not sure how this is funded either. If it's just private people that pay for it, or if there's some kind of government funding available. I'm not sure, but it does look like that was marked a long time ago and has not had a marker put on it.
Yeah. Okay, so there's some brick markers here between these trees. They're like of what we've seen. And I think, this one down on the end. But turn to your right here. So over here, there's a flag marker. No headstone marker between these trees.
Yeah, it's just, we've been having some interesting conversation about
there's a ton more over there too.
You know, if this cemetery or any cemetery was just forgotten about and left, in 50 years, you wouldn't even know that it was a cemetery.
And there's a lot of, like, here over by this tree, at this point of this tree, there's another flag, and it's all sunken in, and there's a lot of sunken in dirt and area up here that might be graves.
Might be graves. We're trying to be careful where we walk, but
I know.
honestly, they're everywhere, all in the trees. There's no like order to it.
There's one there too, in between those trees. Yeah. I don't know. I think there's probably more than they even marked, based on just how random this is. They're probably still trying to figure it out. Got a little worse.
We thought we were leaving, and then we saw one more thing that we wanted to go look at, and we found this pile of the old baby grave brick markers just sitting out here, and it makes me really freaked out that somebody's going to come and steal these, and that feels terrible to me that somebody would take these.
Yeah, you can see the names on them.
Yeah,
and they're all just stacked up.
Yeah.
Well, and what we were saying about this area, so if you want to do a sweep out that way, so see all the like overgrown grass. So if underneath all of this grass are actual like rectangular markers or graves, but you can't see them.
Yeah, it's really hard to see.
We've been trying to like navigate through, trying to be as respectful as we can and like stay on the outside.
Yeah, we're trying to stay outside the perimeter, but it's honestly so overgrown.
Hard.
It's really challenging.
I don't know how anybody, and there's some recent graves over there, so I'm like, how can people get out here and actually visit their loved ones and not step on people?
Yeah.
Yes. Anyways, this is disturbing.
Anyways, on to our next stop. So we're at our second to last stop on our disturbing Hillyard outing. We're in front of the old abandoned Kaiser factory, and this place is huge.
It is huge.
I mean, I wish that we could...
We'll get you some more pictures too.
Yeah, it goes all the way along, and this place is... It's supposed to be abandoned.
But when it gets quiet, there is some music playing from inside of there that we just heard, and it's creepy.
Yeah, we don't know why somebody's in there playing music really loud.
Everything's blocked off.
Yeah, all the windows are shattered out. I mean, nobody should be in there.
Okay, here's a quiet patch. There's too many cars.
Yeah, there's a lot of cars. And we're just on the side of the road here. Making spectacles of ourselves as usual. So... this place is disturbing for a lot of reasons. Do you know who used to work here?
No.
Robert Yates, Spokane serial killer, worked here. He was, I think they call it a scab when you cross the picket lines, or when you take jobs when people are trying to get better wages and things. So Robert Yates, Spokane serial killer who killed 16 women-ish. And you covered that one. So one of our past episodes. And another reason this is disturbing is because it completely polluted all the water.
Listen to that.
Why is somebody in there?
What is that? It's like almost like...
Is it a radio station playing maybe?
It doesn't even sound weird. I don't know. I'm really freaked out though, because nobody's
supposed to be in there. It's all
I
like
don't see any.
barbed wired
cars.
off. But yeah,
It's loud.
it polluted all the groundwater and below water, and so they're trying to do like those cleanups, but it's a big old mess.
Yeah, it's all shut down, and it's a lot of big empty building space that has. I mean, what are they going to do with it? Ever? It's been here a long time.
It has. Well, we'll take some photos.
Yeah.
Or maybe we'll do a drive-by video.
Yeah.
So we're just driving by here and showing you the full scope of this place. It's huge. I would love to go inside
Here we
there.
go. I know, it's massive.
So, I used to drive by here when we were looking for a roller derby space and think that would make a really good roller derby.
You could fit
warehouse.
like 20 teams in there.
Yeah, this is, and then down here, like all the windows
Yeah.
are broken out. Like, there's a whole house place.
Someone's definitely living in there.